Imagine living in ancient times, in the heart of what we now call Spain, surrounded by rugged mountains and flowing rivers. This was the world of the Celtiberians, a unique group of people who lived in the central northeastern part of the Iberian Peninsula during the last few centuries BC. The Celtiberians were a mix of Celts and local Iberians, and they were known to be fierce and independent. They spoke a Celtic language and wrote using a script that adapted the Iberian alphabet. This blend of cultures made them distinct from their neighbors, and Celtiberians lived in a world that was archaeologically linked to the Celts of Central Europe. However, their culture also had significant differences from the well-known Hallstatt and Latin cultures of the European Celts. They lived in hill forts, known locally as castros, which were small, fortified settlements. Their society was primarily pastoral, with cattle herding being a major part of their livelihood, and the Ebro River marked the boundary between the Celtiberians and other non-Indo-European speaking peoples. Within their territory, several tribes stood out, including the Aravaci, Pelendones, Belli, Titi, and Lusons. Each tribe had its own area and identity, but they all shared a common Celtiberian culture, and the Celtiberians were known for their fierce resistance against the Romans. Part of their land fell under Roman control in 195 BC, but it wasn't until 72 BC that the entire region was conquered. Despite being subjugated, the Celtiberians did not give up easily. They staged several uprisings against their conquerors over the years. Interestingly, Celtiberian warriors were also instrumental in driving the Germanic Cimbri out of Spain during the Cimbrian War and played significant roles in other conflicts, such as the Sartorian War. And the term Celtiberian itself hints at a blend of Celtic and Iberian heritage. Classical authors like Diodorus Siculus and Appian noted the intermarriage between Celts and Iberians. Pliny the Elder even speculated that the original home of the Celts in Iberia was in the southwest, based on similarities in sacred rites and language. And the roots of the Celtiberian culture can be traced back to as early as the 6th century BC. They were part of the broader Castro culture, characterized by their hill forts and cattle herding lifestyle. Over time, their settlements evolved, with stone walls and protective ditches becoming more common. Archaeological findings reveal that the Celtiberian culture was a blend of local Iberian elements and influences from the Celts of Central Europe. This mixture created a unique identity that was neither entirely Celtic nor purely Iberian. And by the time Greek and Roman historians started documenting them, Celtiberian society was dominated by a military aristocracy. The Aravaci tribe, for instance, controlled significant areas from their strongholds and led the resistance against Rome. The Celtiberians were known for their metalwork, especially items related to warfare. They crafted prestigious weapons and horse trappings, and their two-edged swords were so effective that the Romans adopted them. The Celtiberians also introduced the Latin word lancia, meaning a thrown spear, and from the 3rd century BC, the basic political unit of the Celtiberians shifted from clans to oppida, fortified cities with defined territories. These cities could make and break alliances and even mint their own coins. Despite this urbanization, old clan structures remained significant, especially in military organization. As the Mediterranean powers of Carthage and Rome began expanding their reach, the Celtiberians found themselves in the midst of conflict and conquest. During the Second Punic War in 220 BC, a coalition of Celtiberian tribes, including the Vaxae, Carpetani, and Alcaides, clashed with the Punic army as it prepared to cross the Tagus River. Despite these initial clashes, many Celtiberians served as allies or mercenaries for Carthage, even marching with Hannibal's forces across the Alps. However, the tide turned when Rome, under Scipio Africanus, secured alliances and turned Celtiberian tribes against Carthage. After Rome emerged victorious, they claimed the Punic Empire in Spain. Some Celtiberians, however, resisted Roman dominance. Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus led Roman efforts to pacify the Celtiberians from 182 to 179 BC, boasting of destroying over 300 Celtiberian settlements in the process. In 155 BC, the town of Segeda rebelled against Rome, forming a confederacy with neighboring towns and even constructing defensive walls. When Quintus Fulvius Nobilior was sent to suppress the rebellion with a sizable Roman force, he suffered significant losses. Despite a siege of Numantia, where the rebels had taken refuge, the Romans faced setbacks, including the retreat of their own elephants. The struggles continued, with another Roman consul, Gaius Hostilius Mancinus, surrendering to the Celtiberians in 137 BC. It wasn't until 134 BC that the consul Scipio Imogenes took charge and laid siege to Numantia, marking a turning point in the conflict. As the Roman forces tightened their grip around Numantia, desperation set in among the Celtiberians. The Romans, numbering 60,000 strong, encircled the stronghold with 7 camps, fortified with towers armed with catapults and ballistae. They even blockaded the nearby river, preventing any hope of escape or reinforcement. The Numantines, though ready to fight to the death, found themselves trapped with no opportunity to engage the enemy. Despite several desperate attempts to break out, they were repulsed at every turn. The situation grew dire as hunger gnawed at the defenders. Eventually, envoys were sent to Scipio, pleading for moderation if they surrendered. They argued that they had fought for their loved ones and the freedom of their land. However, Scipio demanded absolute surrender, refusing any terms other than complete submission. Faced with this demand, the Numantines, proud and fiercely independent, reacted with defiance. Unable to bear the thought of surrendering their freedom, they tragically slew their own ambassadors. As the siege dragged on for 8 long months, the once proud defenders of Numantia faced a grim reality. Starvation drove the population to the brink of despair, and the ultimate horror of cannibalism became a desperate means of survival. Yet, even in the depths of their suffering, the spirit of liberty and valor burned brightly among the Celtiberians. Many, rather than surrendering, chose to embrace death, preferring to die on their own terms than live under foreign rule. Families made the heart-wrenching decision to poison themselves, while others destroyed their weapons and set fire to their beloved town. What had once been a vibrant community of warriors was reduced to a shadow of its former self. When the dust settled, only a fraction of the once mighty Celtiberian fighters remained. Out of approximately 8,000 men who had taken up arms at the start of the war, barely half survived to garrison the ruins of Numantia. The survivors faced a cruel fate as they were sold into slavery, their once proud town razed to the ground by the victorious Romans. The land that had been the heart of Celtiberian resistance was divided among its neighboring conquerors. With the fall of Numantia, Roman influence began to spread, gradually erasing traces of Celtiberian culture. Latin replaced the Celtiberian language, and Roman customs supplanted ancient traditions. Yet, the legacy of the Celtiberians lives on in the place names scattered across modern Spain, a reminder of their enduring presence in the land they once called home. Archaeological excavations, beginning with the uncovering of Numantia's secrets, have shed light on Celtiberian culture, revealing glimpses of their way of life and struggles against foreign invaders. Even in distant lands like Britain, the memory of the Celtiberians endured. A Roman auxiliary unit, the cohors Celtiberorum, bore witness to their martial prowess, their legacy echoing through the annals of history. The Sartorian War marked the final chapter of formal resistance against Roman domination, signaling the end of an era for the Celtiberians.